How do you see the next few months unfolding in New South Wales? We've got vaccination rates lifting, a reopening on the cards, a reopening of schools, but hospital systems overloaded. Ambo's pushed to the brink. How does it play out?
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult month for New South Wales and Sydney in particular over the coming months. There's warnings that October will be the most difficult month in the health system's history, so we need to make sure that our ICU units can operate in a difficult environment and at the same time open up, because we're obviously in our 14th, 15th week of lockdown, and for millions of people under tough restrictions, they're looking forward to seeing families and friends and getting back to their places of employment, getting on with life.
What level of COVID-19 deaths do you see as acceptable per year in New South Wales?
Yeah, look, it's a very difficult situation, and obviously any death, any fatality as a result of COVID-19 is traumatic for those who go through it. And this is a difficult situation for governments to navigate of any political persuasion. But I'd make this point. I think the Premier was right, the Chief Health Officer was right when they said vaccinations are the way to deal with this. In the United States, where they're slightly ahead of us in terms of the vaccine rollout, and they've obviously just gone through summer, 18,000 people died of COVID-19. Just 150 of them were double vaccinated. So the evidence is in, vaccinations work, and that's the way to keep our population safe in these difficult months ahead.
All right, well, New South Wales Health advice to the government urged for a cautious reopening until 85% double vax. You've advocated consistently for a 70% opening up. Is that because you think people can't take much more? What's behind your call for that, which obviously the government's followed?
Yeah, look, obviously the government's decision to have a graduated opening from 70% vaccinations to 80% vaccinations is based on the Doherty Institute modelling, which all state governments have signed up to. Also, Andrew, I've looked at the vaccination rates. So in Blacktown, we have 93% of people have had either one or two doses of the vaccine, and in Bankstown it's between 80 and 89%. Now they're some of the highest vaccination rates in the entire world. So the message from political leaders, whether they're the government or the opposition, has been to millions of people, go and get vaccinated and your freedoms will return. Well, after 14, 15, 16 weeks of lockdown, we need to be true to that promise.
And you've been big on saying we have two Sydneys here, but has the state government addressed that by lifting the local government areas of concern in recent days?
Look, very slowly, and the economic hit to those communities, the 12 local government areas, was deep and will be persistent for a long period of time. We're going to need a full economic package to lift those communities up. In the last month, 173,000 people lost their job, 250,000 people left the workforce completely. So the economic impact on southwestern and western Sydney is deep. There's been a 70% drop in turnover for some of these businesses in these suburbs compared to places in the eastern suburbs that actually had an uptick in economic activity through the lockdown. So it hasn't been felt equally in Sydney, and I don't want a situation where we've got a two-speed economy in Australia's largest city once the lockdown's over.
So what do you think needs to be done for those areas?
Well, the first thing is the government needs to listen to community leaders, businesses and mayors in those parts of Sydney. And the second thing is an economic package to lift them up and get through the economic crisis off the back of the health crisis. Now, that could take the form of some relief for cost of living for families that live in Western Sydney. It could be targeted economic support for businesses in those communities. We've spoken extensively with them over the last 2 weeks, and we're going to have more to say about it in the next fortnight, and I'd encourage the government, steal our ideas. The only thing that matters at the moment is to make sure that we don't have an economic crisis off the back of this horrible health tragedy.
Now, New South Wales Labor for 16 years was all that mattered in this state. Obviously, that was till 2011. You used to work for that government. How do you see the once great New South Wales Labor coming back, and why has it struggled to come back?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We've been spectacularly unsuccessful in Australia's largest state. We haven't broken through with Western Sydney and southwestern Sydney and the vast bulk of people that work and live in Sydney in particular. And we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. And that means that, yes, we'll call out the government and the Berejiklian government when they make mistakes or when errors have been made, in particular the two Sydneys, the different sets of health rules, for example, over the last couple of months. But we will have to have a comprehensive package to take to the people of New South Wales at the next election, because the criticisms of the government as a strategy hasn't worked, and ultimately we're going to have to present more to the people of this state in order to gain their trust and form a government. It's going to be a huge challenge, but I think our new team, fresh with new ideas, is up to what will be a significant challenge.
Well, what are the problems? Is it that your parliamentary team's not that crash hot? Is it that the unions still have too much influence in the party? What is the actual problems there?
Well, look, be a great opportunity to go through the litany of problems in New South Wales Labor. But look, I think we haven't got the trust, we haven't been able to gain the trust of the vast majority of working people in New South Wales. That will be the big challenge. And the way to do that, I think, is to highlight the real challenges that people and families have, particularly in Western Sydney. You saw the government in New South Wales this week privatise WestConnex after going to the last election and promising that they wouldn't do it. Now, that will have a huge impact on the millions of people that rely on toll roads to get to and from work. Those toll roads will go up 4% each year, every year, double the rate of inflation for the next 20 years, and it's a direct broken promise from the Berejiklian government. So if we focus on that, make sure that families and ensuring that they've got the opportunities to get ahead at the next election, I think we will be in the hunt by March 2023. But I'm acutely aware of the size of the challenge facing New South Wales Labor.
Now, you saw Gladys Berejiklian's evidence to ICAC, as we all did last year. There's talk of, or rumours of, private hearings going on into her stewardship of the Daryl Maguire matter. Do you think she breached the ICAC Act by not reporting him to ICAC earlier?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to comment on that. Obviously, the media reports suggest that there's a current ICAC investigation. Indeed, the public hearings from last year haven't been reported to the New South Wales Parliament yet. I just make the point that we've got a serious health emergency at the moment, and notwithstanding the fact that there may be other inquiries or investigations taking place, it can't substitute for government's priorities here, and the priority must be to fight the COVID pandemic and keep us safe as possible during these challenging months ahead.
What's your mindset in relation to ICAC? Do you think the judgment of ICAC has to be respected?
That has been the model in New South Wales since Nick Reiner stepped down at the behest of the independents in New South Wales, between 1991 and 1995. And it's a model that both parties have stood by religiously since that period. Greiner's resignation set the model. ICAC is a standard that we all must live up to and abide by, and I would expect that to continue. And to be fair to the Premier and the government, I don't have any indication that that won't be the case.
Who are you expecting to face at the election finally? Gladys Berejiklian or someone else like Dominic Perrottet?
I don't know, but I would say if it is Dominic Perrottet, he's complicit with the major economic decisions that have been made over the last 4 years, and that includes backflips on privatisation that have made it very, very difficult for Western Sydney families, and I think that'll be the battleground in March 2023.
Chris Minns, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.